Sound Art is a product that is a speaker and it's art. We combine it together and we call it Sound Art. What makes it so unique that any picture can be your speaker? Sound Art gives you the high quality sound without the ugly speaker. This isn't a picture with a speaker, the picture is the speaker. Just imagine your wedding picture uploaded onto a canvas and now it's speaking 10,000 tunes. I mean, it's a very cool concept. What we like so much about it that you can take anything that means something very special to you, upload it on the canvas, have it hanging up in your room, your balcony, wherever you want to put it, and now it's a speaker. I mean, how cool is that? It's something that we have that and no one has. No one has this product. It's just a great gift to give anybody. It's just a neat concept. Around here we say, art never sounded so good.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Sound Art introduces an entirely new way to listen to music in your home. By combining the best of two products, a revolutionary high-fidelity, low-profile Bluetooth wireless speaker with beautiful artwork. Select from a library of artwork or upload your own photos to personalize your experience. Sound Art ushers in an era of invisible, beautiful, and amazing sound throughout your home and redefines your entire entertainment system. The need to reclaim your floor space and rid your home of unsightly speaker boxes that need to be bolted to the wall is now a thing of the past. Our canvas is printed on high-quality permalite by Breathing Color. And select from our gallery or upload your own. Standard sizes include 16 by 20 and 18 by 24 canvas wrapped. Custom sizing is available, as well as surround sound options.
It's a new season, a new car, new schedule, and new format for many drivers that we've seen before here on Pit Stop TV, but this time it's as part of the 2021 Pacific Porsche Cup Challenge. Some of road racing's best on the sim are set to jump into their virtual Porsche 911 GTE Cup cars and do battle across a very diverse 5-race slate to see who can come out on top. With 20-minute sprint races and 40-minute feature events, this series promises to deliver non-stop action across this month of May campaign. Who will start off their season the best way possible, as the stage is now set to kick off things from the Nurburgring's GP Sprint layout. This is round one of the 2021 Pacific Porsche Cup Challenge, and it's coming at you live on Pit Stop TV. Good evening, everybody, and welcome, as we mentioned, to the virtual Nurburgring. We've been here before with Pacific Challenge. This layout, though, is new to us, at least to kick off this 2021 Porsche Cup season, and we are thrilled to be partnered up with a series and a group that is so passionate about this style of racing on the sim. I'm Eric Brennan. Absolute pleasure to be with you. We waited a while to get this series back underway, and we got another familiar voice joining us on the call tonight, and JP Costa, who you'll be hearing from momentarily. Andrew Cardinale IV is handling our production duties, and Emerson Arden is holding it down for us across all social media platforms. And we mentioned social media. There's a number of ways to not only watch tonight's racing action, but you could also pass it around to your friends and your family, and we'll pass along the specifics of those outlets. But of course, the usual is Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. However, JP, first off, welcome back. I know it's been a while since you and I were on the call for one of these races, but all the ingredients are here for us to truly hit the reset button. New format, new 5-venue slate of scheduling, and a lot of anticipation for this Porsche Cup Challenge. I'm excited to get this thing rolling, man. How about you?
I'm excited too. It's just great to be back on this series with this car as well. It's going to be absolutely fantastic, and I cannot wait to see all of these drivers go out on track and start battling each other on both races here tonight. So it's going to be extremely exciting, and well, I just can't wait. We already have qualifying underway, and well, the race is just 10 minutes out.
Yeah, so we mentioned different format, new unique format, but before we get into that, let's talk about this racetrack. Now, we've watched a venue. In fact, it was one of the extra distance races they had, the Pacific Challenge GT3 series last time out, but it was on the full racetrack, the Nordschleife of Nurburgring. This, however, is the sprint layout track, and as you can see, once they come down the main straightaway, they're still going to have that first right-hander at turn 1 before they cut through the Mercedes arena. Up down to turn 5, a sharp hairpin, which will be a unique passing zone, through the left-hander at 6, then through the Blistine curve at turn 7. A lot of straightaways here, JP, and a lot of passing opportunities. I know this venue is either loved or revered by some competitors, but I think tonight for these style cars, this is going to fit the mold of what we're hoping to see as far as a competitive event.
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure this layout is going to be the best for what they are offering. Essentially, it's just a short track. It's just going to provide a lot of action. As you mentioned, we do have long straights and a lot of overtaking opportunities. Obviously, down into turn 1, the long straights all the way up to the chicane of turns 9 and 10. It's just going to be absolutely fantastic seeing these 911 GT3 Cup cars just going around the Nurburgring.
Yeah, absolutely, and I can't wait to see how it all unfolds here. And a lot of the names we're going to talk about tonight are names we've seen before in Pacific Challenge competition, but the format is unique, and the schedule is just as unique. We kick things off here tonight, obviously, and we mentioned in the intro it was a month of May campaign. We're truly going to cram all 5 of these races in on the 5 Mondays that make up the May slate of the 2021 calendar. But then we move on to our Rand Park Raceway 1 week from tonight. The Hockenheim Ring, which is something that a lot of these drivers are looking forward to. Both of those will be on the Grand Prix layouts. Road Atlanta going to run the full track. That's only a few hours from where Andrew and I are located logistically. And then, of course, we'll wrap things up at Laguna Seca. So, JP, I have not had the opportunity to drive this car at some of these venues, but it looks as though the series organizers have done a great job diversifying this short schedule and truly testing the abilities of all these racers.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, I haven't driven this car yet, but with the feedback that the community has, this is probably the best car on the service, on the road racing service at least. And this season schedule is just going to be absolutely amazing. Obviously, we do have the brand new Hockenheimring, which is just going to be amazing. Road Atlanta or in Park Laguna Seca, it's just going to provide a lot of different driving styles, and it may favor some drivers more than others on some racetracks. So it's just going to be amazing to see how the drivers kind of react and kind of just provide themselves on each and every single one of these racetracks.
And, of course, you'll be able to see all these races live on Pit Stop TV throughout the month of May, every Monday night, usually give or take around 10 p.m. on the East Coast, but prime time for those on the West Coast. So, again, a lot of these racers based out of the Pacific side of the United States. So just a good way to make sure that you're here and where you need to be to watch how this season unfolds. And that's what we have to look forward to as far as scheduling. Now, we mentioned the format of these races has been shifted up a little bit. Here's how things are going to work here tonight and throughout this season. Qualifying, which is just about underway, is going to be a 15-minute session to see who can lay down the quick time. Then we're going to move on over into we're going to have a sprint race to kind of kick things off, and points will be awarded. As a matter of fact, it'll be 25% of what the normal points awarded will be for a feature event. That sprint race is going to be 20 minutes in length. We'll see how that is determined. The grid's going to be lined up by qualification. Once we run that sprint race to its completion, we'll move on to a 40-minute feature event. That's where full points are on the line, and that grid will be determined by the finishing order of the sprint race. As far as pit strategy, these cars are going to be loaded up with 40 liters of fuel. So in talking to both JP and Andrew Cardinale IV, we don't expect to see a stop in that sprint race, although that may vary depending on how the schedule unfolds throughout this season. But we do expect pit strategy to be a little bit of a factor once we come down to that 40-minute feature. So a lot of racing action on the docket here tonight and a lot to look forward to. And JP, I know that Formula One has thrown out the sprint race idea for a few races this season. So this is a trend that we're starting to see in multiple forms of motorsports. I think the drivers appreciate it because it's more track time with a little bit on the line as far as points and prestige. What are your thoughts about this slate that we have here tonight? Qualifying, sprint race, feature race. There's a lot going on tonight and a lot of track time for these drivers.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, a lot of track time, so we might be seeing the best lap times towards the end of all three sessions. But the good thing is sometimes the job isn't all over on qualifying. You know, as you mentioned on the feature race, the grid is going to be determined by the finishing order on the sprint race. So, you know, if you get a bad qualifying session and you can make up some time, that may help you. Obviously, the other way around, it's going to work if you just have a bad race. Unfortunately, you're going to have your work cut out for the feature race, but it's just going to provide us with essentially an hour of racing, but crammed into two sessions. One, I guess, more hectic than other. But it's just going to be fantastic to see these drivers know how they're going to attack the sprint race, and how they're going to attack the feature race. You know, it's just going to be two completely different strategies.
As we cycle our way through a number of in-car cameras that we have for you here tonight, you see a number of names that have been staples to the Pacific Challenge Series, like that of Curtis Jones, who we had earlier, David Flanagan, who we ride on board with right now, Mikel Ruderbusch, who, even though he just had a massive off there as soon as we went to him, he's somebody who has really been very consistent as far as putting together solid results the last two seasons. However, he has yet to find a championship-winning opportunity. This style of car and this style of schedule may suit his style. Brady Lubenow is another one who it seemed as though whenever he was able to avoid some contact or conflict on the racetrack, he would typically nail down some solid results. So he too is looking to be the driver to beat in this series that we have here, the Pacific Challenge Cup Series, to kick this 5-race season off. Now, we told you how the race format's going to go. Let's look at a couple of other bit of variables and information that are going to be key in how tonight's races take place. One of which is going to be that of the championship point structure. So we mentioned 25% point totals are going to be handed out in that sprint race. Here is how the full point structure is comprised. 40 points goes to the race winner of the feature event tonight. It's in an 8-point deficit back to second, 32, and then 26 to the driver who will round out our podium tonight. If we have 20 or fewer cars, top 10 pay championship points. If we do have a field that is over 20 drivers, top 14 will pay out championship points. And that's just an effort to try to make sure that drivers who find success, regardless of the field size, have a fair opportunity at being able to celebrate it once this season winds down. We mentioned the 40-liter of fuel max. That's something to certainly consider. But JP, one of the biggest things that we like about this particular series, it's an open setup, and they encourage these drivers sharing their setup ideas across one another. But this is truly going to help out those who have the ability and time to put in on the sim to log some laps and see how they can set up their car for this diverse schedule we've been talking about. And I think we're going to see some of these creative and technical minds shine. As you see, Nick Ledecky is currently a half second clear of the field right now in qualifying. This open setup format here on tracks this tough with a spec car across the board is really going to separate those who are able to invest a lot of time and resources into this product and those who may not be as fortunate.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it's the same car, each and every single driver has their own driving style. Some like more oversteer, some like a more stable car. So having the open setup just gives the liberty to each and every single driver to tune their car to their liking and whatever makes them faster, essentially. But obviously, you know, there's their community, they like to share, they help each other out. So sometimes you can kind of learn from your rivals and kind of adapt yourself. So it's going to be very interesting to see how different the setups are. Sometimes we're going to have I guess setups there offer more downforce, therefore offer more drag and may favor the car on some section of the racetrack. It's just going to be one of those results of that open setup idea.
Yeah, that's definitely something that some of these drivers are going to try to take advantage of as the season rolls on. We're watching Nick Ledecky from high above the Nurburgring Grand Prix sprint layout, and you can see Ledecky, who is somebody who, it was pretty much feast or famine the last time out in the Pacific Challenge GT3 series, where on the races in which he showed up, which he ran about 60% of the schedule, he was usually one of the top three in qualifying, if not the fastest. But unfortunately for him, if he was not running at the front of the pack, he was usually getting swept up in an accident, or in some cases, he even crashed out of Road America while leading at one point in that race. So for Ledecky, if you're talking about drivers coming into this 5-race slate with something to prove, I would put Ledecky's name at the top of that list for the reasons that we just mentioned. The fact in which he has shown speed, shown pace, but rarely has had the opportunity to go home with the reward that comes with being so quick. And as you can tell by our timing and scoring ticker, he's gotten himself paced in front of the pack already by a pretty considerable margin. It's Brady Lubenow who is second quickest, Chris Brunnemer third, Curtis Jones fourth, and James Hansen, your provisional top 5, with a little over 3 minutes left to go in this qualifying session that will set the lineup for our scheduled 20-minute sprint race. And JP, you remember Ledecky showing us flashes of brilliance, and I gotta wonder, you know, some drivers are able to shake off some of the rough times that come with them, but when you're as fast as Ledecky has been, you got to see this as an opportunity to go up against some of these really heavy hitters on the iRacing platform and prove that this is what you should have been doing all along. This is what he knows he's capable of putting together, and we can see right now he's penciling himself in as the early favorite tonight.
Yeah, exactly. He's just showing fantastic pace, and the fact that he is half a second clear of the field and is still going out for laps, not just staying in the pits, essentially putting himself in the mindset of the race, just shows how much he is willing to push to try and get perfection essentially on his laps. As you can see, he's opening yet another qualifying lap, and that pace is just brilliant for him. You know, half a second is not easy. Doesn't matter how short or how long the circuit is. It's just a fantastic gap, and it's a perfect way to start the season. I know everybody wants to start with a pole position, and that obviously puts you in the perfect place, not only on the run down to turn 1, but obviously on the whole race essentially, if you do get the right start.
Yeah, right now, being that he is running by himself and logging laps in this capacity, we don't have the opportunity to really see where he is so much better than the competition. We're pretty much going to have to wait till we get underway for this sprint race to see how that gap ebbs and flows. Brady Lubenow just ran a personal best. He cut into that deficit by about 1/10 of a second, but he's still currently running in the second spot as far as timing and scoring is concerned, with what may turn out to be one of the final laps in this session. Here's Chris Brunnemer, who's somebody who has put himself top 3 in points the last couple times out for Pacific Challenge competition. So he knows he's one of those who everybody is going to keep their eye on as far as once we get things underway. And Brunnemer is right where we expect him to be, currently third in this qualifying session. And Brunnemer seems to shine Qualifying may not always be his strong suit, but he seems to shine quite well once we get under race conditions. And I could say the same about this driver, and Curtis Jones, who is seemingly always in and around the top 5 when we get these races underway. And he right now sits 4th in this session, 8/10 off the quick time set by Ledecky. And it looks like he may elect to allow the car behind him and James Hansen a clear path to try to lay down a flyer on what could be the final lap of this session. But familiar names up towards the front of the running order. And I think, JP, when we do get underway with this sprint race, and I think this is going to be the best part of this sprint race, it's a bit of an appetizer and a teaser where these drivers could learn a lot about how Ledecky is attacking this racetrack and kind of grow from there. I mean, I think as a racer, you kind of welcome that opportunity to know that you got a little bit of a warm-up before you get underway. Granted, it pays points and it carries a lot of prestige, but that's a chance for these drivers to study what Ledecky is doing, as he appears to be a notch or two better than the field right now.
Yeah, exactly. That's just going to give everybody the opportunity to not only watch and learn, essentially, but to try and adapt to the situation, because obviously they're going to have the 20-minute attack mode, the sprint race, and obviously it's all going to be reset to the feature race, the 40-minute, so they can kind of learn where he's kind of gaining and losing, and kind of learn with the tire wear, also to try and put a different strategy on the 40-minute feature race.
We're also expecting standing starts for these sprint races and feature events. Here's how they're going to line up. Nick Ledecky on pole with that blistering lap, and Brady Lubenow, who ran his personal best 2 laps shy of the finish of qualifying. That's your front row for this first sprint race of the season. Chris Brunnemer, Curtis Jones going to take you into row number 2. We talked about how they're always up towards the top 5 or top 4. That's where they find themselves here, 3rd and 4th respectively, with Brunnemer going to line up the inside of row number 2. 5th position is going to be that of James Hansen, with Mikkel Rudebusch lining up alongside. Rudebusch also somebody who's trying to reap the rewards of the pace he's been able to show the last 2 seasons in Pacific Challenge competition. He will be starting in 6th position. Back to the inside of row number 4, it's going to be BC Voigt, who we had not had a chance to talk about yet in car 64, and Wade Hayes in the 83 will take you back into the 8th spot. Rounding out your top 10 is going to be that of Corey Peters in the number 97, and the 789 of David Flanagan is your top 10. And we've got 12 cars entered here tonight, so it's going to be Jimmy Allen in the 17, and one of the newcomers to the Pacific Challenge season, and Cody Johnson in car 5, rounding out our 12-car field. Now, granted, the rules and regulations did call for standing starts. Looks like we're going to have a rolling start here tonight. So that may be a bit of an opportunity for these competitors. And JP, again, I am not the most versed person on the iRacing platform. What's your preference? If you're running in this style of car, this style of competition, do you prefer standing starts, rolling starts? What's more fun? What's more effective from a racer's mind?
If you're the leader, I guess the optimal is a rolling start. You can kind of just get the jump and create the gap before turn 1, avoiding all of that essentially turn 1 mess. On these cars, seeing the iRacing Esports Championship, these cars are so much fun to launch as a standstill on a standing start. You just have to manage the clutch, the brake, everything, and it just makes for a complete different strategy. But either way, I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a fantastic start, and you're gonna definitely see cars going side by side on turn 1.
And this also may be the one and only shot that some of these drivers get to try to get up to, perhaps to round Nick Ledecky, maybe to kind of shake him up after the flyer that he set in both practice and qualifying. Some may see this as their one and only opportunity to get the job done here early in the going in this race, and we're about to see how it all pans out. So there's been a lot of anticipation, a lot of energy, and a lot of build-up to this moment right here, the start of this 5-race run for the Pacific Challenge Cup Series with the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup Cars, and we're kicking off our season officially with this 20-minute sprint race at the Nurburgring. Ledecky with a masterful start as we come down for green, and the 2021 Pacific Challenge Cup Series is green. Side by side for the lead. Lubenow was trying to draw up alongside the outside of Ledecky, the quick time setter, as they came through the arena sector of the track there. And it's Ledecky with the lead. Lubenow second, and slotting into 3rd position early in the going in this one is Brunnemer, who is trying to keep pace with the front 3. But Lubenow put up a steady fight with Ledecky that time in the first couple of corners.
Perfect Perfect start for the leader and perfect start for the rest of the grid, as we do have another battle side by side here. Looks like everybody made it through the first and second sector, and the battle for the lead is definitely heating up. Now we're gonna see Brady is gonna be getting the slipstream, and he might have a shot at the chicane. It's gonna be difficult, it's gonna be tough, but he's there and he's getting closer.
Yeah, utilizing the availability of that draft. We talked about the straightaways that this particular layout has to offer. That may be a bit of an equalizer for the competition here as Ledecky holds the lead. Big slide, but the tail end of Lubenow that time as he came off the right-handed corner, and they come through this final sweeper here that leads him up onto the main straightaway. There's the gap from Lubenow, who you're on board with, to Ledecky, and look at Lubenow trying to snake with Ledecky in the draft on the front stretch. Ledecky knows that that is a chance for Lubenow to close up, but right now he's trying to extend the lead that he's got to turn one in the tune of about a half second.
Ledecky was not taking any chances with this slipstream. As you mentioned, he was snaking around, as we do have, looks like, a change for third position. Looks like James Hansen jumped Chris Brunnemer right behind it, as we do have a few cars going off the track, looks like on turn 2, but looks like everybody is safe and looks like no one has any damage.
Yeah, so a couple of cars off in the distance sliding around there in turn number 1 after what was a pretty calm and even start. The first lap went in the books cleanly. Lap number 2, not so much. Let's go back and see what happened here. A big lock up there by one car. Overshot the first corner entirely, and that may have checked everybody up that time, and that is Rudebusch, we're being told. So Mikel Rudebusch, who had a top 6 qualifying effort, having a big slide there down in turn number 1, and is going to forego what could be a top 6 spot or so.
That's one of the main differences between the GT3 and the Porsche Cup Car. As we saw last season, they had ABS. Unfortunately, these cars, cold tires, sometimes they can catch you out, and that difficult downhill brakings on a turn 1 unfortunately caught Rudebusch out, and he lost a lot of positions.
We go back up to the front of the pack now, where Ledecky continues to nurse that lead over Lubenow. And as you said, JP, new third-place runner, and James Hansen got up and around Brunnemer for that spot as we drop back to this heavily populated battle. And how about Cody Johnson? Started 12th on the field. We mentioned him being one of the names that we're not too familiar with this Pacific Challenge season. He's right smack dab in the middle of this thing. He's up into the 8th spot and working on Corey Peters to try to get 7th away.
That's a fantastic start for him, and well, he's doing it fantastic. He just kept his nose clean, and he already made 4 positions off the start, and looks like he's trying to put a bit more pressure to make it 5.
And there's a lot of camaraderie between some of these drivers and competitors that run this series. We see it weekly on some of the chat or even some of the discussions that brought this series to life. There's a lot of respect, but sometimes when a name comes in who you're not all that familiar with, there's a bit of a feeling out period as far as the competition goes. But in fact, he's got a teammate right close to him there as far as Peters, who is up in front of him. And that is something that we know that these two have a relationship that has led to this point. So we don't expect things to get too rough in that battle for 7th. But for the rest of the field, they're already catching the attention of Cody Johnson because he has been very impressive in the opening few laps of this sprint race. That is already almost a quarter of the way through. As you can see on the ticker on the top left-hand side of your screen, we're coming up on about 15 and a half minutes to go in this 20-minute race. And so far, Ledecky has been able to steadily increase the gap at the head of the field. But we got some great racing going on here on the bottom portion of the top 10 as they come back up onto the front stretch.
Yeah, exactly. Ledecky doing exactly what he needs to do. Another fastest lap for him. But the battle for essentially 8th place is still very much live. Look at this train. Just everybody just also close to one another. As you can see, just pretty much trading paints one another with the bumper. And Curtis Jones right here is going to try to sneak down the inside of Allen. And he's probably going to make the move stick as they head into the Mercedes arena.
This is a great battle for position. Bit of a tire lockup just in front of him there as Jones is going to try to take that spot away and get the pass made. So Jones, who is somebody who we did see closer up towards the front of the pack earlier on, now able to pick up one spot there as we move back up to this 3-car pack that is led by BC Boyton. In the last series that we had the point standings kind of split up between pro and amateur drivers. It was only set apart by iRating. The qualifier for this series was you had to have a minimum I rating of 1,700 or more, and your safety license for the road courses had to be a minimum of a Class B for all drivers. Well, BC Voigt was somebody who was actually in that amateur category last season, and he actually ran very well towards the latter stages of the season and was in contention for a high points paying finish as far as those amateur drivers were concerned. But right now, he's got himself one spot shy of the top 5. Everybody's on the same playing field here. Points are being tabulated and scored across the board evenly, and Voigt has himself a pretty sporty looking ride here today, holding down that 6th spot with the top 5 just a little bit further up the road.
He's doing a fantastic job. That's just so nice to see him fighting essentially for P5, albeit he's a bit further away from Hayes, but he's trying to hold his own against Peters. But this guy, Ludecky, just again extending his gaps. Looks like Lubinow is safely on P2 and Hansen on P3, but Ludecky is just doing exactly what we saw in qualifying and just extending that gap nearly 1.8 seconds already as we head into 13 minutes to go.
And I think this performance that we're seeing out of Ledecky this early in this sprint race, again, once the clock strikes 0, we'll come to the checkers. These drivers are scheduled to have a quick warm-up, and then we'll roll into our 40-minute feature event. But I think what this performance by the leader is doing, as we take a look at the weather and track conditions right here, currently in Nurburgring, Germany, was informed earlier by production that this race is actually taking place in the morning hours as far as the sim is concerned. 64 degrees and mostly cloudy. Track temperature relatively cool at 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Not too much of a difference there from the ambient air temperature, that is, but the wind has a little bit of gust to it. You see about 8 miles an hour or so, kind of fluctuating a little bit north and south of that. So some may call it a perfect day at the racetrack, but for these drivers, they're having to navigate their way through these changing weather conditions, or at least these calm weather conditions, I should say. And now they'll be keeping that in mind as well as they approach this feature event in just a short while. But the point I was making about Ledecky is I think this is further going to up the intensity of the start of the feature, because these drivers kind of know now that may be their one and only shot to get up and around this guy. And we saw how it almost got, oh, trouble. Corey Peters spins, and Curtis Jones tags the front end of that car as he goes around in turn 1.
Ooh, that was not ideal. Unfortunately, he just lost the back end. Looks like on the apex of the corner, so quite late in to lose the rear of that car. May have due to the setup, may just came up a bit too hot, as we're gonna see now. The downhill braking zone in turn 1 is extremely difficult, especially with no ABS. As you can see, he just comes in, he just kind of overshoots it a bit, and then the rear end is just like nope. And it looks like we did have another car half spin just ahead of him, so looks like turn 1 caught a few drivers out on that lap.
Yeah, Peters was running in about the 7th position. Looked like there was a car 2 positions up ahead of him that may have had some misfortune at the same part of the racetrack. That was James Hansen, your 3rd place runner, who was running, as you can see, clearly by himself. And that was a good catch, JP, there. Wasn't able to make out what car that was. We just saw it momentarily. Now we're going to get a good look at it, and it's probably going to look very similar to what happened to Peters. This time, it's through the center of the corner that he loses the back end. Turn 1 is clearly the trouble spot here today, and it's caught out Hansen and Peters both on the same lap, both running in top 10 positions.
Yeah, that's extremely unfortunately for both of them, and pretty much the same mistake as you mentioned. Just came in a bit too hot, and their rear end was not having any of that. Now the work has been cut out for both drivers, but James Hansen has proven that he has the top 3 pace, so he's definitely going to be eager to pass through everybody, starting on BC Voigt, who finds himself on the top 5 right now.
Yeah, that one little bit of a mishap and misstep there by Hansen and company has allowed Voigt to crack the top 5. How about Wade Hayes, who's quietly worked his way up here into what would now be the 4th position, and that's the fight that we're seeing on your screen between Hayes, followed by Voigt and Hansen for 4th, 5th, and 6th, respectively. But Wade Hayes is very quietly worked his way up into that spot, and what could be the outside of row number 2 starting position come time for our feature race, as we are halfway through this sprint event. And this is also going to help the opportunity for some of these competitors to take advantage of that start for that feature race that's coming a short while from now. So far, we saw everybody be relatively clean on lap 1. Since then, we've seen turn 1 catch about 3 different drivers off guard a couple of times here so far. So I think we're in for a pretty entertaining feature event, but we still got 9.5+ minutes to go in this sprint race. It's been all Nick Ledecky at the front of the pack, but everything behind him has been absolute insanity, including this race we got going on right here for 5th.
Yeah, exactly. It has been great racing. And as you mentioned, the finishing order of this race is going to dictate the starting order for the next race. But look at this. We do have two teammates battling. They're going to be going side by side through turn one. Can he get the move done? Can both of them make it cleanly through turn one? That's the number 5 of Chris Johnson. And both can. So extremely clean. And that's James Allen, looks like, into P7.
Yeah, and you saw how quickly there that Curtis Jones closed in on those two and nearly got into the back of both Johnson and Allen as they battle for that position. We flash up a little bit further forward. James Hansen has gotten by BC Voigt. Now we see Jimmy Allen trying to keep pace with Cody Johnson as they run 7th and 8th with Jones right there as well. And Jones is somebody who caught a little bit of damage on the front of that car as he almost missed the corner there coming through the right-hander. But when Corey Peters spun in front of Jones, it was Jones' car who kind of center punched him as Peters sat stationary in turn one. Doesn't appear to be too much major damage as he is working feverishly to get up inside and around Jimmy Allen, who's sandwiched between Cody Johnson and Curtis Jones. Again, this is the battle for 7th.
Johnson is definitely feeling the pressure right here. Are they going to go side by side through the chicane? No, they're not. The teammates kind of respecting each other. As look at it, Johnson misses the chicane completely, and that's just going to allow Allen to get by. The number 17 Porsche just gets by on essentially the undercut of the corner, and it just gets the move back done. As looks like Johnson is really struggling with his car. On the last lap, he was just moving all about, and that's going to cost him 1 and maybe 2 positions on the run down to turn 1.
Yeah, very, very unique mistake. And here comes Jones with a big dive down to the inside. Johnson tries to outbrake him. They're 3 wide momentarily. Jones locks up the front tire, and Johnson with the over-under gets the spot back. That's incredible.
Johnson made it a bold move work, essentially. He almost made 2 positions. Now he's going to be forced on the outside of the Mercedes arena. Is he going to make it clean? Yes, he does, and he gets the position back on his teammate, but he loses 1 position to Jones. But what an amazing battle. 3 wide on 2 corners that we don't actually see. That was just amazing.
Yeah, I thought Johnson gave up 2 for 1 there with that big slide. He was able to cut back underneath, at least get one of them back, as it's now Jones ahead of Johnson, Allen, and Corey Peters trying to arrive on the scene quickly as we move up here to this battle for position with Hansen still trying to come back from the spin out of turn number 1 a couple laps to go. He's got Wade Hayes in his gun sights. Chris Brunnemer further up the road. If he can get by Hayes here quickly, he may have a shot at a podium finish in the sprint race. And let's remind our viewers that this sprint race does not only set the lineup for a feature event, it pays points. Now, I'm not privy enough to do all the math off the top of my head, but we do know that Ledecky is en route to what could be 10 points of this win, but a 25% breakdown of the rest of the points-paying positions. I mean, every spot here could matter as far as how things come to rest at the end of our finale on the final Monday in May. There's a lot on the line for these guys here, and they're pushing hard.
Yes, exactly. James Hansen wants to get by Hayes because he knows that the championship is going to be a close battle, at least on this race with Brunnemer, who's just ahead of these two. And he definitely wants to have not only that starting position for the feature race, but also those extra few points. And he's definitely applying the pressure, but looks like he's also getting a bit of pressure from BC Voigt, as we do have a car spinning on, looks like the exit of turn 1. That is Curtis Jones spinning on the exit of turn 1. So that's another driver who got caught out.
Bit of a black cloud hanging over Curtis Jones here today at the Nurburgring. That is about the 2nd or 3rd time we've seen him have a problem, and I believe it is the 2nd or 3rd time we've seen it happen in turn 1. Here he is by himself, and you see here as he gets off the center of the corner, that's pretty late on the exit where it looped around. Fortunately, it spun late enough. He did not impact that guardrail before it kind of jets further out to driver's right to offer more runoff room, and he backed up way to the groove to get that car righted, but lost a couple of spots in the process, and Jones is running out of time to make up positions here in this sprint race. He may have to rest his laurels completely on the feature event, as he has now plummeted down the running order to 12th, which is shotgun on the field for now, as we got 5 minutes to go with Ledecky continuing to check out.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately for Curtis, he has the whole 40-minute feature race to try and get the position back. But look at these two. James Hansen trying to get closer and closer to Hayes to try and get that move done. Is he going to be looking on the inside of turn 2? Not quite close enough. He's going to be trying the Mercedes arena, just applying a lot of pressure. And Hayes not conceding, not making a single mistake. This is great defensive driver by Hayes, and well, if he keeps on going, he's going to be starting on P4 and grabbing those few extra points for his championship.
Minimizing mistakes may be the key to success here tonight, and I think that's something that's going to go across the board. I mean, we're on board with James Hansen right now, who is trying to come back from a spin that he had himself here tonight. Wade Hayes, he has not had any mistakes. In fact, the top four that is, have kept it relatively clean all throughout the 16 minutes that have made up the sprint race so far. But we have seen these drivers in the past overstep their boundaries, and I feel like the longer this race runs, the more we're seeing some lockups on the front end, the more that we're seeing drivers get back to the gas a little bit too quickly. And this is only half the distance, and it looks as though there's a problem with the leader in Nick Ledecky. He may have fallen out of the server. He flashes back into place here on the front straightaway, but Ledecky is literally trying to hang on to what could be the sprint race win, but he is certainly lagging badly.
Yes, exactly. It looks like a big internet problem. He's blinking heavily. Luckily for him, his gap is substantial enough to not affect the other drivers, but that's going to be worrying. That's definitely worrying for him and for us also, to seeing that the leader essentially 5.7, 5.8 seconds ahead of second place, blinking heavily like that. And well, the question now is, can his internet hold on at least for the end of the sprint race?
And I will say, as somebody who's been involved in sim racing commentary for just about a year now, I've heard before in the past, oh, it's so unfair when somebody has some sort of an issue like this. Well, think of it as the equivalent as a mechanical problem in, a real world sports car or stock car, open wheel, whatever fan of racing you may be. That's pretty much the way of the game. Sometimes luck just does not go your way, even when you have the best car, the fastest car. The good news is it appears as though that issue has stabilized for the time being for Ledecky, and he continues on his merry way. But that's just a factor of motorsports in general. Sometimes there are things that could happen that are completely out of your control that could take you out of the running, and that's one of the variables of racing on this sim and platform that Ledecky is going to have to challenge throughout the day, not just the competition he is racing against. Look at this battle for third on back that is about to be 3 cars deep. Both of these drivers catching Brunnemer for third. Wade Hayes holding on to fourth, and Hansen trying to get back up towards a potential podium spot for now as they rocket their way on the front straightaway with 2 minutes to go.
Hayes now forced to go in defensive into turn 1. Looks like he's just going to be going back into the racing line and be closing the door. Oh, and that's going to half spin. Oh, James Hansen saves it. Pretty much half spins. He's going to be losing at least one position as he looks like he is in BC Void, finds himself back into P5, but Hansen is not done yet. He's going to be trying the outside of the Mercedes arena. Can he get the car turned in? No, not quite. He's going to be losing another position. Defensive driving from Hayes saves in the position, and unfortunately for James, costs him once more.
We were just talking about JP minimizing mistakes, and unfortunately for Hansen, his eyes were red. He wanted the spot from Hayes. He went down at turn number 1 and lost the back end of the car. He locked up the front tires first, and then it was the back end that gave up on him when he tried to catch the car. And you mentioned at least it was a half spin, didn't go all the way around or contact the wall, but nevertheless, it cost him one spot and the chance perhaps to vie for 4th position or maybe higher. He's now all over BC Voigt for the final spot in the top 5 in what may be the final lap and a half of this race. We'll see what happens when Ledecky gets back to the line as we are under the final minute on the clock, and indeed the white flag is out for Ledecky in this sprint race. A dominating performance for the fastest car in qualifying. Had a bit of a scare there with connectivity, but so far nothing else has slowed him down. That lead now 5 seconds back to Brady Lubenow, who has steadily been the second place car. As a matter of fact, that lead is up to about 6 seconds or so here, with Ledecky working his way around for the final time.
Ledecky has absolutely showed class on this sprint race. As you mentioned, fastest car in qualifying, fastest car in the sprint race, led every single lap, and he's on his way to start not only on pole, but getting those precious 10 points, at least on this session. That's going to be a fantastic race for him, and that's a huge boost to going into the 40-minute feature race.
So Ledecky, who, as we mentioned, bested the field in qualifying by over 0.4 of a second. We talked about some of the feast or famine opportunities. Looks like Chris Brunnemer may have had a problem from the third spot. We notice his car has fallen down the running order for now. And indeed, Brunnemer has fallen back here into a battle for 5th place. So he went from 3rd to now trying to hold on to a top 5 spot. But it's all going on behind Nick Ledecky, who had that incredible run in qualifying, put himself in contention to do just this. He's going to lead every lap in his sprint race, ensure himself a pole shot for the feature, and collect 10 points along the way. A celebration to capture the sprint race here at the Nurburgring. It's Nick Ledecky grabbing the first official checkered flag of the 2021 Pacific Challenge Cup Series, as we got a great battle going on for 3rd on the front straightaway.
Wade Hayes looks like he's going to be holding out for 3rd place out of nowhere, and BC Voy is going to be finishing P4. James Henson manages to fend off a P5, and Brunnemer on the last lap drops from 3rd place all the way down into 6th. It looks like Johnson, Allen, Peters, and Ruderbush all crossed the line on that order, and what a finale, what a final lap we had.
Yeah, we mentioned the issue that Brunnemer had there, and that was while running solidly in about the 3rd spot behind Ledecky and Lubenow. We're going to try to see what may have happened here with Brunnemer, perhaps, if we can get that up for you. But nevertheless, he was able to salvage still a finish up towards the front of the pack, and he had pace to maintain the 3rd position. And here it is. This is coming through turn 1, and turn 1 looked like it was going to bite again, and it sets him off for an awkward corner here through the Mercedes arena. So far, so good. You see Wade Hayes lurking in the background, still about 4 car lengths behind Brunnemer. And we know at some point here things are going to go sideways, because we noticed that he kind of plummeted down the running order rather quickly, and we'll see if that time is in fact coming.
May have been on this hairpin of turn 5. We saw some, oh yes, exactly. He just locks up, unfortunately gets on that grass AstroTurf and just loses all those positions. Unfortunately for him, everybody was also close, and he goes side by side with Henson on that final sector on turn 6 and turn 7, but unfortunately he has to yield, and that small mistake cost him 3 positions. That's how close the racing is on the Pacific Cup Series.
Yeah, it's incredible, and the good news is we've still got about 40 minutes left to go of racing action. But first, we're going to have an opportunity to talk to the driver who captured the flag in the sprint race and has been the fastest driver here tonight. While the quick warm-up session is happening prior to our feature event, let's take this opportunity to talk to Nick Ledecky, who captured top honors by walking away from the field relatively quickly. Ledecky is going to try to kick off his season with a feature event win, and we have a chance to catch up with him now. Nick Ledecky, first off, you have put yourself down as the guy to beat here tonight. Fastest in qualifying, walked away from the pack there in the sprint race. We mentioned you've had so many flashes of brilliance before in Pacific Challenge competition, but tonight appears to be your night. What are your thoughts and levels of confidence going into our 40-minute feature event here in just about 8 minutes' time?
I would say as of right now, confidence is right where I left off in the GT3 season. I mean, coming out, sweeping pole, and leading every lap of the pre-final, it's looking really good going to the final.
Now, we did notice during that sprint race there that it looked like there may have been a light bit of connectivity issue. Is that anything that you were able to see on your end? Any concern there? Or hopefully we got that sorted out for this final 40-minute go of it?
I do believe we have it sorted out. We had my parents watching upstairs, so they're hopping off the Wi-Fi now. So hopefully that'll give us a little bit more bandwidth to work with, and we won't have any drops.
Well, we're hoping as well. We want to see this thing run to its conclusion here to see exactly if you're able to put it all together with a perfect night. And, I mean, this season, this car, it's obviously unique and different to what we've seen in the past with Pacific Challenge. What are your thoughts here between the open setups, the sprint race format? I mean, do you like what we got going on here for this 5-race stretch here in May?
I do like the format, but even though many would call me crazy for wanting this, I actually think some reverse grid starts would be really interesting.
Well, only because you've been so dominant, I'm going to vote yes on that one, and we'll see if we can try to push that through just so that way we could be a little bit more entertained in these next few races. But nevertheless, you got a pole shot here tonight, Nick. I want to wish you the best of luck. I know you still got about 6.5 minutes left of warm-up time, so good luck tonight, buddy. Hopefully we'll talk to you a little bit later on tonight as well.
Thank you very much, guys.
And again, that is Nick Ledecky, our fastest driver in qualifying, our sprint race winner, and he's going to be going for a feature event. And JP Costa we've got some time to talk to Brady Lubenow here, who finished second in that sprint race.
So Brady, essentially a ghost race for you. You were just kind of your own, just faster than P3, a bit slower than Nick. How fun is this car on this racetrack? How amazing? How are you liking it so far?
I absolutely love this car. It's pretty hard to drive. I would say it's one of the hardest to drive on the surface, with no traction control or analog brakes, but and not very much downforce. But it is a blast. Yeah, Nick was very, very fast. I was trying my best just to run away from everybody, and maybe be there in case Nick had problems. But it was a fun race. I'm glad we got another race coming up too.
Yes, exactly. You're starting P2 on obviously now the feature race, a 40-minute feature race. You kind of took a look at how Nick started the sprint race. Did you learn from his starting position, essentially when he gunned it? Can you try to catch him down into turn 1 and probably fight for the lead on the first few laps?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be a little bit more racy this time at the beginning. I don't know if he was taking it easy or just being super safe or what, but I maybe could have got beside him in the arena there. But I just wanted to be safe for that first race, but I'll probably be a little bit more racy if I'm there again.
Well, I can't wait to see you guys going side by side through turn 1. Please be safe. Don't try anything crazy, but well, good luck on the 40-minute feature race. Hopefully we get a lot more action and have a good one.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So that was Brady Lubenow, Eric, and I guess what we can see from each and every single one of these drivers is how amazing this car is to drive. It's really difficult, but it's really rewarding to get it right.
Yeah, and I think minimizing mistakes is the term that I'm going to lean on here all night long, because we've seen it here, whether it be turn 1 or the hairpin at turn 5, there is an opportunity to step out of line relatively quickly and relatively easily, and it's put drivers in positions to have to come back from some form of adversity once they did find themselves in that bit of trouble. So, as we got about 4 minutes left here in this morning, I want to say morning warm-up session, but it's a warm-up session. Let's go back and see how they came to the checkered flag in that sprint race, shall we? We saw the unofficial results there momentarily. We do know that it was Nick Ledecky and Brady Lubenow, and we'll actually take a look at that a little bit later on tonight. So we'll watch the end of this warm-up session with one of the drivers we just spoke to, as far as Lubenow, who is currently on track. And I got to say that Lubenow is probably somebody who was steadily the second fastest car that was on the racetrack throughout the duration of that sprint race. And he, too, was able to mind his P's and Q's throughout the duration of that sprint race event. And we will see if that pace is able to be sustainable throughout tonight's broadcast and this 40-lap feature event, or 40-minute feature event, I should say, that is coming up next. And I don't know, JP, sound like there that he was admitting that he could have been a little bit tougher there on the start. Maybe he thought Nick was taking it easy. I think he set the stage for a lot of anticipation for what we're about to see here when we get ready to go green.
Yes, exactly. It looks like he's going to be taking a few more risks on turn 1. Obviously, he now knows kind of the restart zone that Nick is going to be taking, but also more importantly, he knows he's the second fastest car on the racetrack. He was not as quick probably as Nick on that first 20-minute race, but he was quicker than third place. So essentially, he knows he has the little bit of extra pace, and obviously, if he does make a mistake on turn 1, he's going to have 40 minutes to try and claw it back, and with his pace and a bit more aggressiveness, he can definitely make some places back if something happens.
So we're about, give or take, 2.5 minutes away from getting this feature event underway, and we'll refresh you once again on how we're going to expect this to go. The lineup is set by virtue of the finishing sprint race that we just had a short bit ago. And 40 liters of fuel, so we can expect the potential of perhaps one pit stop throughout this feature event, and we will see here how that is going to pan out here in about 2 minutes time or so. So we mentioned earlier that sprint race that came to the checkered flag, there was so much going on throughout the top 5. Here is how they came to the checkered flag. Ledecky, Lubenow, Hayes, your top 3. BC Voigt, by being able to keep his nose clean throughout that race and methodically work his way up through the pack, after starting 7th, was able to finish in 4th, and James Hansen, despite 2 semi-spins, rounded out your top 5. Chris Brunnemer, who was 3rd pretty much all sprint race long, ended up in 6th. Cody Johnson with the impressive charge from the back of the field up to 7th. Jimmy Allen was 8th, while Corey Peters 9th. And Mikkel Rudebusch, who had that big off on turn 2 should say turn 1, lap 2, rounded out your top 10. And then it was David Flanagan and Curtis Jones who rounded out our 12-car field at the conclusion of that sprint race with 40 minutes to go here in our feature event. And JP, as we get set kind of here for this initial green flag, these drivers had one more chance to attack this track for this 10-minute warm-up session. Anything more these guys could have learned here, perhaps? Or is this just kind of to keep the muscle memory intact and just further ingrain what the proper line is on this racetrack for what lies ahead?
Obviously, the more track time, the better. You kind of just iron out your mistakes and all that sort of stuff, but also gives you a chance to kind of push the limits a little bit on the braking zones, on the how early you can get on throttle, because obviously on the warm-up zones you can just kind of reset yourself if something happens. So it's kind of an opportunity to take a bit more risks and kind of understand your car a bit better, maybe on heavy fuel load. But it's definitely a bit of an extra practice that each and every single driver will take. We saw some drivers actually practicing the pit entry and the pit stop, so we could be seeing something like that happen on the next 40 minutes.
Yeah, before we cut into our race time here, let's remind everybody about some of our partners here on Pit Stop TV. We could not do it without them. We'll start off with our friends at Tucson Sound Art. Remember, your picture, your music. Use the promo code PitStopTV at checkout to save 10% off your wall-mounted sound art device today. The website, TucsonSoundArt.com, to learn more information. We're also brought to you by our friends over at Race Pace. I would be leaning on them if I was in the racing competition here tonight, because Race Pace is a community-driven setup shop and driver development program. The best way for you to pick up the pace is to go to our friends at Race Pace. Discord link there on the bottom right-hand portion of your screen to learn all that you need to in order to get yourself in top running position today. We're also brought to you by our friends at Permanent Makeup in Maine. PermanentMakeupInMaine.com, because you deserve the best care that money can buy. Our broadcasts are also brought to you by Whiplash Media, the official graphic and camera provider of Pit Stop TV. Head on over to whiplash-media.com to learn more about all that Whiplash can do for you. And finally, our newest partner here on the platform at Pit Stop TV, BAM Racing Videos. By a race fan for the racing community, BAM Racing Videos. Check them out on social media. They've always got some interesting stuff that are floating around there after a short track racing weekend. And again, that is one of our newest partners here on the platform, BAM Racing Videos. Well, with that, as you can see, the field is coming into formation, and we are getting set for the first feature event of the season. Here's how they are going to come down to green. Nick Ledecky, by virtue of his dominating performance in the sprint race, is going to lead us down for the start, trying to have the perfect night possible, with Brady Lubenow lining up alongside. Inside of row number 2, by virtue of his consistent and quiet third-place finish, he's going to have a chance to lead the field down to the green flag in that third spot. By virtue of that strong run, it's going to be Wade Hayes with BC Voigt starting alongside of the 64. Watch him from the outside. Row 3, James Hansen and Chris Brunnemer taking you 5th and 6th respectively. While back to row number 4, we find Cody Johnson and Jimmy Allen. Last 2 rows in the field is going to see that of Corey Peters and Mikkel Ruderbush, 9th and 10th respectively. And rounding out the field is going to be that of David Flanagan and Curtis Jones. As the pace car dives to pit road, we are officially set to get the Pacific Challenge Cup Series underway. 12 Porsche 911 GT3 Cup Cars about to rocket their way down to turn number 1 at the Nurburgring to see who will start off their season on top. Ledecky quickly on the gas and ready to get this season underway. The green flag is out. The Pacific Challenge Cup Series feature event, the first of the season, is underway. Boy, that time Ledecky wasted no time to try to clear the field. He got a masterful jump over Lubenow there, and he has got himself a lead of about 3 or 4 car lengths as they come out of the Mercedes arena, with Lubenow trying to solidify second spot and seeing if he could do anything with Ledecky early in this race.
Lubenow did an amazing defensive act on turn 1. He kind of lost track of the race of the start, and Hayes kind of jumped him, but he got the position back on the outside of turn 1, and looks like he's keeping a bit of pace on Ledecky. Looks like he may have a bit of more confidence on the colder tires, and he's putting a bit more pressure. He's closer than what we saw him on the sprint race, so he's definitely keeping up his word of being a little bit more racy, at least on the first part of the race. But looks like the rest of the grid, as James Hansen unfortunately drops down to P7, so he may have seen a mistake from him. So we're gonna see another recovery drive from the number 1 car. But look at these two, the top two are still extremely close, less than half a second between those two as they head into the end of lap 1.
You can see already that top two have opened up a bit of a gap to Wade Hayes, who solidified himself in third. BC Voigt running right where he started in fourth. Brunnemer up in the fifth spot. Cody Johnson continues to slowly climb his way up the running order. He's plus 1 spot in the opening lap to 6, but look at the battle for the lead. I got to believe, JP, there's a sense of, oh, that was a bit of a bobble there by Ledecky. He almost lost the back end of the car in turn 1, like we saw many do in the sprint race. There's got to be a sense of urgency from Lubenow to try to get this job done while he's close enough. As you see Brunnemer working the outside here of Voigt to try to move up to fourth.
Brilliant move there by Brunnemer on the outside of the Mercedes arena. You don't see that often, and he gets the move done on BC Voigt. And these two exactly. Lubenow is now applying a lot more pressure. That's not something that Ledecky was used to on the sprint race, and he's definitely going to be having to fend off that position now for the time being, as they are less than half a second between one another, as they now head into the massive back straight, essentially, which we could be seeing a move on the chicane. But Brunnemer, an amazing move on the outside of the Mercedes arena, finds himself now in P4, chasing down Wade Hayes.
One of the things that I look for when we're privy enough to talk to some of these drivers in the heat of battle, in this case after that sprint race leading up into this feature event, is tone of voice and confidence. And I got to say that both of our top two seem very calm, cool, collected, and most importantly, confident. We spoke to Nick Ledecky directly. He said his confidence is way up there. I loved his idea of the reverse grid start. As a matter of fact, I think that proves a lot of confidence by that driver. And so far, they're displaying it in the form of the performance they're putting on at the front of the pack. However, this fight right here from BC Voigt, James Hansen and Cody Johnson just will not separate, as you see Hansen trying to send it up the inside here on Voigt in turn 1 to try to take that spot away. And you saw the back end of the car settle there at the crest of that corner, pretty much there at the center of the apex of turn 1. You can see how much there's a bit of a shift there as far as the redirection of the pavement, and that's what's been catching a lot of these guys off guard. That time Hansen was ready for it, and a spin behind him.
Looks like Curtis Jones and Michael Rudebusch came together under the Mercedes arena. That extremely tight turn off turn 3 unfortunately caught both of those drivers out, and that's an unfortunate start of the race. But luckily for them, 40 minutes awaits them, as now we're going to be taking a look at the replay. As you can see, just unfortunate contact between those two.
Yeah, I believe we're going to see Jones end up tagging the backside of Rudebusch that time on a part of the racetrack where we don't always see trouble break out. Turn 1 has been the trouble spot. This was pretty much once they got into the Mercedes arena. We're looking at the back bumper of Rudebusch. Remember, he was involved in something earlier. Defensive line down to turn number 1. That was Jones who actually went by him here, or tried to. Rudebusch is going to be able to defend the spot. They're setting up for turn 2. Jones up the inside. Oh, that was close. He saw Rudebusch there kind of lag out momentarily. Jones still up alongside. A little bit of a lockup there, and they both end up going around.
Yeah, a bit of a lockup on the front tires of Curtis Jones. Rudebusch kind of going in aggressive on the fending. Not wrong at all, but just maybe a bit too aggressive, a bit too early. And that unfortunately spun both cars out, and they both find themselves on 11th and 12th place respectively. But the battle for essentially P5 looks like is still very much alive, as James Hansen now is back on P4. And Cody Johnson on P6 trying to pressure BC Voigt on P5. But Allen also on the just on the shadow, I'd say, just trying to put a bit more pressure on Johnson to see if he can force himself into a mistake.
Yeah, right now, Johnson is not able to shake Jimmy Allen just yet in that battle for 6th and 7th, with BC Voigt still up the road just a little bit there of Johnson, who, remember, Johnson started pretty much last on the field in the sprint race, worked his way up to 7th. He's picked up 1 spot already, looking for more, but he's got some pressure from behind. But how about this at the front of the pack? I mean, that gap from Lubenow to Ledecky, you see it on the bottom right-hand portion of your screen, just 0.6 of a second. Lubenow is not letting Ledecky break free. energy. They're both really aggressive on the curbs there through the chicane as they get set to come through that sweeping right-hander and back up onto the main straightaway. Lubenow still in the vicinity of Ledecky enough to benefit from a bit of a slipstream here down the front straightaway, but it appears that from the exit of the chicane back to the start-finish line, Ledecky is usually a tick quicker, but how about that? Lubenow setting the fastest lap of the race thus far. These two are going blow to blow right now to kick things off, as a bit of a slide there through turn one for Ledecky again is allowing Lubenow to stay close.
Yes, exactly. Lubenow doing exactly what he needs to do, putting fastest lap after fastest lap, and he's keeping that gap under the second, which is really important. Just keeping that pressure on Ledecky to try to force him into even a small mistake can help out a lot when you're less than 1 second. But as you can see now, the gap kind of extends to 0.8 of a second. So looks like Ludecky's setup or his driving style suits the first sector of this racetrack a bit better. But we're gonna have to wait and see if Lubenow can catch him back up as they head into the final sector of this racetrack. As you can see, just a small tiny mistake, and that's just a bit enough to cost him 1 or 2 tenths between these two, as we do have a car spinning around on turn 5. That looks like, is that BC Void?
I believe it is. I believe that is BC Void, who was holding down that spot up there towards the top 5. We mentioned how close he and Cody Johnson were trying to battle for a position. Here's Johnson with the look down to the inside. Got the position here on Void. And oh, Johnson ran a little bit wide, and that got Void up the racetrack. And Jimmy Allen came in and may have nudged the backside of Void to send him around as they came through that right-hander. So a chain of events there. It looks like Johnson was the one who initially slid the front tire and pushed Voigt wide, and Allen's the one who comes in there and tags the number 64 and sends him for a slide.
Yeah, that was a bit of unfortunate events, kind of one led to another. But as you can see now, Jimmy Allen on the onboard, as you can see, Johnson just goes down the inside. He locks at a bit of the front tires, kind of door bangs, and unfortunately, Allen kind of just looks like he target locks into his teammate. But unfortunately for him, just a small tap. Looks like no damage, but BC Void unfortunately was facing the wrong way on turn 5.
Yeah, and Corey Peters says, "Excuse me, coming through. I'll take 2 spots, thank you." And he finds himself up to 6. But remember that pressure that we were talking about Brady Lubenow applying on Ledecky? I mean, you see he's still there, but he's fallen a little bit further back. That gap now over a second. In fact, 1.2 seconds as they come through the far side of the track here again. And this is where Lubenow is just trying to hang on to that bit of a draft that he could sniff off the rear wing of Ledecky, and doing everything possible as we inch towards the quarter distance mark in this race. Again, 40 minutes is going to be the length of this event. We do expect a pit stop at some point. As JP Costa mentioned, we did see drivers practicing pit entry, and we also saw them doing a number of things to practice stopping in their box properly and getting prepared for what could be a race-determining pit stop later on today. And we still got some good fights going on the racetrack, like this battle for the final spot on the podium.
Exactly, James Hansen is trying to get back what once was his spot on the sprint race, now trying to get it back from Wade Hayes, who's doing a fantastic job. Wade actually didn't allow Hansen to get past on the sprint race for at least, I'm going to say at least 10 minutes. He was soaking up the pressure, so if he did it once, he can probably do it again. But Hansen is going to definitely have to pull something out of his sleeve, some different card to try to catch Hayes out and try to get back to the podium position.
Yeah, and Wade Hayes has been doing an incredible job all night long. I mean, granted, qualifying, he ran a sporty lap, but he was not running where he was at the checkered flag at the sprint race. Just a car that was pointed in the right direction all throughout that sprint race. Been doing the same thing here, as opposed to the driver that is chasing him. I mean, James Hansen is someone who we know has the pace and speed to be up towards the front of the pack, but yeah, as we saw tonight a couple of times, it just lost the handle on the car, typically down in turn number 1, and it's put him behind the 8 ball a little bit and perhaps kept him from contending for a top 2 position. But he sees a podium spot just up ahead. He's trying to draft up on Wade Hayes here, and I think it's going to be a matter of whether or not Hansen is able to keep this car pointed in the right direction as to whether or not he makes the pass. Looking low into turn 1, Hayes slides the front tire a little bit. Hansen slides the back tires a little bit. Hayes will hold the spot as they come through the Mercedes arena. This the battle for third.
It's a fantastic battle. Hansen was kind of, looks like he's trying to get a small look down into turn 3, not quite close enough, but they were pretty much trading paints. Hansen is really trying everything to trying to get past Hayes. Is he going to be looking down into turn 5? He just pokes his nose out, but look at it. Hayes just goes the fence, mid corner. Looks like they made a small bit of contact between those two. So this battle is definitely heating up. And, well, it's just going to get better and better if these two keep battling. Johnson is going to be on their back sooner than later, and that's going to be really interesting to see a third car battle fighting for that podium spot.
It's one of the things you got to love about this series with the Pacific Challenge Cup Series, and the fact that you kind of see things maybe extend the margin a little bit as we go back and check on what happened to Jimmy Allen here. As you see Brunnemer letting Allen by, it looked like, as they came off that corner. Allen takes that spot away. So not sure what may have precipitated that, but it looked as though that Brunnemer pulled aside and allowed Allen a chance to get through before they got to the front straightaway. And Allen continued to hold that spot down to turn number 1, which again has been the bugaboo corner this evening for some of these drivers. And Allen will hold that position through the first corner. Brunnemer runs wide. So far, so good, though, for Allen. Waiting to see here if a potential misstep is coming. This is through the Mercedes arena. Brunnemer is somebody who's uncharacteristically been struggling. That's Corey Peters up ahead of Allen. Got way tight down on the grass that time. Ooh, man, as he's providing some close calls here is Jimmy Allen as he gets up towards the hairpin at turn 5. And we'll see what happens here to Allen. This is that hairpin at turn 5. Slight bobble there. That's where Brunnemer had his mistake in the sprint race. He was able to survive that. Keeping our eyes here on Jimmy Allen for the time being, as we do know that he's going to have some sort of problem. Still gapping Brunnemer, though. Really surprised that Brunnemer and his pace here tonight just has not been what we were expecting out of a driver who has been up towards the front of these race results many times. And that was bizarre. You talk about a lot of rear brake that time. He lost the back end of that car almost before he turned into the corner.
He completely, unfortunately for him, he just dipped a wheel onto the grass, and that's just going to cause you, as soon as you dip a wheel onto the grass under braking, that's just going to cause your car to spin. And unfortunately for him, cause a few positions, you're just going to see the wheel just goes a tiny bit on that curb, and that was just enough to spin the car around. Luckily for him, not contact with any other driver, and he can just kind of feed himself back on the racetrack safely. But as you mentioned, Chris Brunnemer looks like he was struggling. He may have lost the position to Jimmy Allen on that chicane, as we just had a big off. Looks like that's Hansen, a big off on the chicane just as we were looking at it, and he's gonna lose the position to Johnson, as looked like they may have come together on the final chicane of turns 9 and 10.
We talked all night long about minimizing mistakes, and that's something which Hansen had struggled with a little bit here tonight. Here's the battle between he and Wade Hayes for that third spot. These two have been tied together for the last 10 minutes or so. This is approaching the chicane. You see here Hansen looking down low, gets up alongside. It looks as though that he's got a half a car length. Wow, Hansen, I'm not sure what that was about there, but he just turned right down into... Well, actually, it looked as though Hayes was the one who turned down into Hansen, who was up alongside. That was pretty bizarre there as those two came together. That overhead shot, though, made it look like it was Hayes who faded down into the left side door of Hansen's car.
Yes, exactly. It looks like Hayes was kind of expecting Hansen to be on the edge of the racetrack. As you can see, he just feeds himself on the racing line, and Hansen was on the middle of the racetrack essentially, and unfortunately just gets collected. Looks like that's a big jump, but I don't think he's going to be having any suspension damage, but that's really odd from both drivers. That's a really odd racing incident, but luckily for them, both kept pointing on the right direction, and both safely were fed into the racetrack again.
So as they run, we're showing Wade Hayes running in third, Cody Johnson up into fourth. His charge up to the front of the pack continues. And Hansen, who's got to be steaming underneath that virtual helmet right now about that contact, is just running right there in fifth, with Corey Peters not that far behind in sixth spot. So Johnson able to stay out of trouble. And also, let's kind of give a bit of a round of applause here to both Hayes and Hansen for how they re-entered the racetrack. I mean, that could have been disastrous for Johnson and company if they came on a little bit too abruptly or spun across the track perpendicular to the racing surface, and they were able to safely merge back on despite being in two different separate grass patches at one point after what was some pretty major high-speed contact in a race for third gone bad that Hayes continues to hold.
Yes, exactly. Perfect job from both drivers to actually keep it pointed on the right direction, and both actually use different strategies to get back on the racetrack, but great job for them. And Cody Johnson, a newcomer on the league, not a single incident so far. As we can see now, a battle between Mikael Rudebusch and Flanagan, just half a second between those two, but Johnson, keeping his nose clean, is fighting for a podium position. So as you mentioned, Eric, mistake free will get you a long way on this race.
Yeah, and that was pretty much the story as we were watching the sprint race unfold. And speaking of drivers who have been mistake-free, how about David Flanagan? He's somebody who did not have the best of luck in that sprint race. You see there, started 11th by virtue of where he came home at the end of that 20-minute affair. We are just about halfway through this feature event, and by virtue of him being able to keep his nose clean and keep that car pointed in the right direction, Flanagan is not only up in the top 10, he's running 8th right now, and he's got Chris Brunnemer just a little bit further up the road as he's got some pressure from behind here from Rudebusch, who is flickering in and out of your picture. But Rudebusch is somebody, too, who is on a bit of a comeback trail. We saw earlier after he and Curtis Jones got together on one of the opening laps that it kicked him back towards the tail end of the pack. But these are two drivers with two totally different stories that are unfolding as more problems for Brunnemer.
Looks like Brunnemer is sorting out some hardware issues. I'm not pretty sure if that's his brake pedal, because we saw him struggling a lot on braking zones, but he's going extremely slowly, and I'm not pretty sure what's happening to his car, if he's just cruising around trying to sort out his issue. As you can see, he's around 30 miles an hour. He might be out of fuel at this point, which is really, really odd for this car. No, looks like he's picking up the pace, but extremely odd, I guess, things happening to Brunnemer on this race, as now he looks like he's picking up the pace once again.
Yeah, very odd indeed, especially considering the fact that we were able to go the first full 20 minutes with that 40-liter tank in the sprint race without a problem. We still are 2 minutes shy of that mark here. It's just been really odd, and you can see and kind of hear here that he's just kind of slowing his pace entering turn one. Peters with a bit of a lockup in front of him. No major reaction, no major slide, no major, glove save and a beauty, just very off the pace. And this is similar to what we saw earlier when Jimmy Allen made the pass on Brunnemer. I thought that perhaps Brunnemer was giving the spot up by virtue of maybe a penalty or a shortcut or something, but this appears to be something different for a driver who we're used to seeing on the podium in some of these races, now falling all the way down towards the tail end of the field.
I'm not pretty sure if you caught that, Eric, but on his, as you can see, just look at the gear selection. As soon as he approached actually the turn 2 and 3, his car just stayed on 6th gear and just came back to neutral. So you could have seen maybe a hardware failure from his part, which is really unfortunate. As you can see, his car is just staying on 6th gear. He may have lost access to, I guess, the downshift pedal may have been malfunctioning, because he looks like he's struggling on the downshifts and on the braking zones, and that could explain the odd behavior that we saw early on in the race.
That's a really good catch there, JP. That's something I wasn't able to notice earlier, and that would certainly hamper his efforts to get off of those slow-paced corners. And more problems for Jimmy Allen. Another spin here by Allen, who goes around after he was running in a top 10 position at the time. And Allen, who has been involved in a couple of incidents here tonight, some of which by virtue of contact, some of which by himself. And as we are about to hit the halfway point, you see him here running a little bit further back of the competition, kind of in a league of his own. This is the hairpin at 5, and there goes the back end of the car. That's similar to what we saw Brunnemer do in the sprint race on the final lap. This time, though, Allen makes light contact with the left front fender to that outside tire protective retaining wall.
Yeah, exactly. He just carried a bit too much speed on turn 5, and unfortunately for him, he lost the back end. But look at this. That's James Hansen. Looks like he finally made the move on P3 on Wade Hayes. He finally got the move down into turn 1, so a great move for him. He finds himself back on the podium where he once was on the sprint race, and if he keeps his nose clean, he could be seeing a shot at the final podium result.
Yeah, unfortunately for Hansen, that pass was made without much aggression. I thought maybe there would be a little bit of frustration stemming from the contact earlier with Hayes, but Hansen, who has patiently bided his time, has worked his way back up into that third spot. The problem is he's about 16 plus seconds, nearly 17 seconds behind the leader in Nick Ledecky, who continues to open up the mark at the front of the pack. It's Ledecky, Lubenow, Hansen, your podium, as we've eclipsed halfway in this race with a potential pit stop looming. Hayes and Johnson, your top 5. Peters, Rudebush, Flanagan, Voigt, and Allen, your top 10. Jones and Brunnemer, your field. After we've seen many drivers, give or take about half the field, have some form of an off-track excursion at some point tonight, but that has not been the case for your top 2, and it has especially not been the case for Nick Ledecky, who has dominated since we kicked this season off with qualifying and throughout the sprint race, and now throughout at least 50% of this final.
Yeah, Nick Ledecky is doing absolutely everything that he can. He's just leading, kind of just extending the gap lap after lap, and he's doing perfectly. 4.6 the gap to Brady Lubenow at this point in time, and he's just extending the gap slowly but surely. And Cordy Peters right now trying to apply a lot of pressure on Johnson, and as he's left less than half a second behind, as Johnson is trying to catch Wade Hayes at this moment in time. Looks like we're gonna have a strong 4-way car battle fighting for P4, and right behind these guys we do have Mikael Rudebush, who is doing an impressive comeback drive, just 3 seconds behind all this group.
Yeah, we mentioned some of the drivers who had trouble. We talked earlier, Rudebush and Jones were some of the first 2 to have some sort of an incident. After a spin for Rudebush, I'm with you, JP. That's a really impressive comeback effort for Rudebush, who is not that far behind Peters. And you're watching how busy the hands are around this racetrack. The overhead track layout for this venue, the Nurburgring Grand Prix sprint layout, it looks like it could be relatively simple according to some, but as you can see with this car, without much assist at the driver's disposal and the requirement to be as fast as the competition, considering that not everybody is utilizing the same setup, even on some of the more simple corners, like right there on the exit of the chicane, you see how busy he is threading that wheel back and forth. This track could be a bit of a handful, not just in turns 1 and 5, but all the way around, in order to make sure that you're balancing, keeping your foot on the gas as long as you can, but also having the most optimal amount of traction. And Peters is showing us that getting around this racetrack is no easy feat.
Yes, exactly. And one thing I'm actually really surprised is how tuned his car is under braking. As you can see, his steering wheel is doing a lot of micro corrections as soon as he gets on throttle in mid corner to trying to get those front end tires to grip, but under braking is just dead on center. So his car is really planted, but it just shows how difficult it is to try to get to maximize traction on this car, because obviously we don't have ABS and we do not have traction control. So applying the right amount of throttle at the right time on the corner is essential to getting that lap time.
And we've seen a lot of drivers slide the front tires on corner entry, and that is something that you have to keep in mind as well. I mean, not only do you have to pretend that you have an egg under the gas pedal, you almost have to do it with the brake pedal as well when you come into some of these hard braking zones. Otherwise, you could totally burp the front tires and put yourself behind the 8 ball for the duration of the stint. And Peters is somebody who, despite a couple of lockups himself, he is starting to find more pace the longer this race runs. He's closing up on Cody Johnson for what's going to be a race for 5th. Just behind is that hard-charging Mikael Rudebush we were talking about. But as you look back from Johnson's machine, and I want to emphasize the fact that JP and I have talked about the fact that Cody Johnson is a name in which we are not totally familiar with on the Pacific Challenge Series. But as we told you coming into tonight's race, there is a prerequisite, as a matter of fact, 2 to be in this series. That's 1,700 I rating or more, and that minimum Class B license as far as road racing competition. If you're in this field, you're a pretty well-accomplished road racer. I'll tell you right off the bat that you definitely have a higher I rating and license than I do as far as road racing standards on the platform. But nevertheless, despite the fact that Johnson is somebody who we had not called upon as on Pacific Challenge broadcasts, at least not in the prior season, he is somebody who is proving that he is right where he belongs, because he has gotten better and better with each lap and minute that he has turned. And most importantly, especially as someone who has not raced around these drivers for over a year or so like the competition has, he is earning their respect by being able to keep his nose clean, and he's got to do that for just 15 more plus minutes here to perhaps end the night with a top 5.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing absolutely everything that he can, and he's doing everything right. He hasn't been involved in a single collision, probably not even out, I guess, an off track he may have gotten at one point. So he's just doing perfectly. He started off in 12 on the sprint race, and he finds himself in P5 on the feature race, just doing an absolutely amazing job. As Nick Ledecky, with 15 minutes to go, just decides to put a qualifying lap in at 128.1, amazing lap time, and he's just cruising at this point. Actually, not cruising, he's doing the qualifying laps, but he's on fire, essentially on rails. This car, as you can see, just absolutely perfection. As we do have a car spinning around, that's Curtis Jones. Looks like he is still struggling a bit with his race car.
This track has not been kind to Curtis Jones before, who is somebody who we are also accustomed to seeing towards the top 5 of the field. We saw him involved in that incident with Ruderbush early in the going. This time, off the left-handed corner, you saw him catch all the rumble strips with the left side tires. And once that car transitioned back to the pavement, she came all the way around on him there and nestled him off into the grass. But fortunately, the barrier was a ways off, stays in front of Brunnemer. Despite the mechanical gremlin that he had bogged him down throughout the field, he still has a chance to pick up a spot or two before this race comes to a close. And that flyer that was set by Ledecky, as we see Brunnemer here still all over Jones for what is still a top 10 position, as BC Boyd is on the pit lane. And that may lead me to my next point here. If this is in fact the scheduled stop, I'm wondering if Ledecky was laying down that flyer, as Boyd is going to roll back out on the field here. I'm wondering if Ledecky laying down these flyers is the hint that he is getting set to come down for service for what we expect to be the one and only stop for drivers in this field. And there it is. So that was what he was doing. He was setting himself a bit of an in-lap here prior to coming down for service. And Nick Ledecky, who has been the driver to beat all day, is on the pit lane for service. And Lubinow is not going to deviate off strategy. He's going to follow the race leader and pace setter down the pit lane, as is most of the front runners.
Yeah, looks like just because Ruderbush is staying out, so he's going to be essentially leading this lap. But look at this, a massive Porsche 911 GT3 Cup Car, essentially traffic jam on the pit stops. As you can see now, Brady Lubinow is going to be the next car to go off, as James Henson now stops in his pit box to fill up with fuel. And well, this is just going to throw a spanner in the mix. If someone saved a bit of fuel, this could be the right time to essentially undercut your strategy and trying to get that position. But looks like James Henson is the third car essentially to go out of the pit lane. And Cody Johnson, can he come out ahead and essentially keep his 5th place? Looks like he can. And Jimmy Allen now looks like he's the last car to come into the pit lane.
Now, something else we're going to have to keep an eye on here as we watch this race unfold. Granted, Ruderbush, as you mentioned, JP, one of the only cars that did not stop this time through. We're well beyond the halfway point in this race. As you can see, we've only got 12 minutes left to go, plus the completion of that final lap as Brunnemer now hits the stall for service. Calculating the fuel load. We've seen drivers misjudge that number in the past. Sometimes they overfill and they lose a ton of spots in the pit lane. Other times they underfill and they find themselves in a fuel conservation mode late in the going, or they end up coming up short. So now Ruderbush is going to pit one lap later than the field, so he might have an opportunity here to dial back a little bit on that fuel load to save some time on the pit lane. But for everybody else, that's the question. Did they time it out perfectly to get him to the end? And if they did not, will they have enough breathing room as far as a margin back to the next closest pursuer to nurse the car home in a fuel conservation mode if they have to?
That's an amazing question, but unfortunately we're only going to know the answer in 11 minutes time. He's just going to have to wait and see. I'm pretty sure Mikel, he had a 3-second gap ahead of him, so he could be gambling at least a bit on fuel, so we're just gonna have to wait and see it. As looks like he had a very quick stop, so we might see him jump in a few positions as he filters back on the racetrack. So does David Flanagan, and we're just gonna have to see where these guys just kind of filter out. It looks like Ruderbush just filters out behind Wade Hayes and ahead of Johnson and Peters, so he may have done an amazing strategy to jump not only 1 but 2 positions.
Yes. So that would be an incredible jump for him. And Flanagan also is somebody who may have been able to reap the reward of the pit strategy as he has moved up to the 8th spot with Corey Peters about 3 car lengths up ahead. Flanagan's, in fact, closing on Peters. And look at that, Cody Johnson as well right there. By virtue of losing a top 5 position to Ruderbush in that pit strategy, Johnson, Peters, and Flanagan all pretty much in a knot here for 6th on back as you saw Johnson there slide one of the front tires through turn 5.
Looks like the tires may have got a bit cooler as they were stationary in the pit lane, so these drivers just kind of have to get used to those tires up again, trying to get them back up to temperature. As you can see now, Johnson struggling just a tiny bit, and Peters just behind him, sorry, just trying to close that gap. And Flanagan, after that pit stop, is closing a lot. But something that I'm looking at the timesheets, looks like Johnson and Peters may have overfueled the car a bit because they are way further back than Hayes than they were before the pit cycle.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. The margins will tell the rest of the story, but somebody who may have hit the nail on the head is this driver. Nick Ledecky has gotten the lead now up to 10 seconds over Lubenow. And let's not just, shine the spotlight entirely on Ledecky. Brady Lubenow has clearly been one of the fastest 2 drivers in the field tonight. And you could tell not only by his ability to keep pace with Ledecky, who was one of the fastest cars all night long, as we watched Ledecky just so calm, patiently, in fact, I almost said conservatively there, but there's nothing conservative about the lap times that Ledecky's been putting down. Like you said, JP, it's just been almost qualifying laps each and every lap. We do have a fight, though, materializing here for 3rd for 2 drivers who have been attached at the hip. This time it's Hansen holding down the final spot on the podium. Wade Hayes wants it, and Cody Johnson has had a slip up here after he was challenging for a position just outside the top 5.
Looks like Cody Johnson just lost his car in the Mercedes arena. More specifically, it looks like it was on the exit of turn 3, as we're just going to have to wait and see, as it looks like he just comes into the braking zone at turn 3. He does it all said and done. It's a really slow corner. He just applies the throttle a bit too much, a bit too early, and that's enough to spin the car around. Unfortunately for him, those sticky tires were not sticky enough to hold that car, and he loses 2 spots.
We talked about how Johnson's been able to keep his nose clean throughout the night. Did not sustain any damage there, but that was pretty much the first mistake that we've seen out of him. As we go back to this fight here for 3rd against 2 drivers who just cannot avoid one another. Earlier in the race, we saw these 2 side by side for the 3rd spot. Hayes appeared to weave over drivers right into the door of Hansen. They both had a very high speed off at the exit of the chicane. They somehow find each other together again after Hansen was able to get back up to and around Hayes for that 3rd spot. And after the pit stops, which have pretty much separated a good bit of this field in some places, has not calmed this battle for the 3rd position with 7.5 minutes to go. Hayes doing everything possible. Hansen, though, has seemingly been a tick quicker, and we're starting to see that gap increase a little bit here. Right now, it is about 9/10 of a second, while Hayes tries to close in under braking.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, he seems to just be pulling a few tenths each and every single lap now, over a second the gap, but it's going to be interesting to see if Hansen can soak up the pressure that Hayes is going to be putting. Even though he's already 1.2, 1.3 seconds back, it's still a very close gap, and every single mistake is going to cost you that position. So we're just going to have to wait and see if Hansen can pull what Hayes did and just soak up that pressure lap after lap for the remaining 7 minutes of this race.
Yeah, that's a really good point to bring up there, JP, and we're going to have to see how that all unfolds. But how about Nick Ledecky? And if you weren't with us earlier in the program, we kind of summarized the story of Ledecky the last time we saw him in what was the Pacific Challenge GT3 series. This is something that is going to be a storyline, I think, throughout the duration of this Pacific Challenge Cup Series with these Porsche 911 GT3 Cup cars. Ledecky is somebody who has just been so brilliant and so fun to watch. Feast or famine, though, unfortunately, has been a lot of the story. He comes out and is usually one of the top 2 or 3 cars in qualifying, and once we get down to race mode, he's in contention for wins and victories. Captured a couple of podiums in his slate of starts in the last time out for the Pacific Challenge GT3 series, but it seemed as though that if he wasn't on top of the podium, the reason was because things just got a little bit too far away from him at one point in the race, and he was never able to make it back up. He's hoping to rewrite the script here with this Pacific Challenge Cup Series and this Porsche 911 GT3 Cup car. And as he overcooked the corner there, whoa, that was close. Coming through the chicane, he hopped the curbing there big time and slid the front tires. He was able to keep it pointed in the right direction, but that is all the while nursing a 12-second lead. But JP, that's what makes Ledecky so fun to watch. He's constantly pushing it, even when he doesn't have to.
Yes, exactly. That small mistake cost him at least half a second, at least probably close to 1 second. But, you know, as you mentioned, 12 seconds ahead and he's still pushing it. He is not on that limp home mode, but that mistake, I'm pretty sure his heart skipped the beat because it's just so easy to get the car pointing in the wrong direction there. But that was an amazing car control, just kind of balancing throttle and brake to keep the car pointing in the right direction and still made a corner. That's pretty much all you need to know about the quality of the driver that you are watching right now.
When we kicked the sprint race off, it looked like Lubenow was going to give him a really legitimate challenge for the race lead as they came through the Mercedes arena for the first time. When they came down for green for this race, though, Ledecky was ready to roll quickly. He got himself out to a healthy lead and has never looked back. He set the pace as far as when to pit on the racetrack. All but one driver electing to follow him. Really, two drivers, as a matter of fact, electing to follow him down on the pit lane when he decided it was time to pull the trigger. And he's putting himself in prime position here to start things off with as much points as possible. As we mentioned, he's going to get 10 points for the sprint race win. It's 25% of the total points that are awarded at the end of this race. And if he's able to stay here in P1 for the remainder 4+ minutes in this event, he'll add 40 points to that total, while the second place runner Lubenow could only pick up 32, and our third place finisher in James Hansen will grab the third place points in 26. Because we only got 12 cars in this race, only the top 10 are racing for points paying positions. So Curtis Jones, who's about 10 seconds behind that of Jimmy Allen for the final points paying spot on the racetrack, has got some additional motivation to try to get up to Allen here in these closing few laps.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, only the top 10, but Chris Jones kind of does. He does have enough time. He has at least 3 laps, I'm going to say, to catch up. And with some mistakes that we have been seeing, that gap is definitely not impossible to catch up. But no, Nick Ledecky is just going to be coming up with, at the moment, the most amount of points possible. And that's going to be the perfect start for this 5-race season for him. As you can see now, Curtis Jones on your screen, as now we cut back to Johnson. Looks like he's closing the gap now to Flanagan, less than half a second. He's definitely going to be trying to make a move as we head into 3 minutes left to go on the feature race.
Cody Johnson, who was in contention for a top 5, had the spin, lost 2 spots, now trying to get at least one of them back. Not sure he's going to have enough time to get up to Corey Peters, who's had a very calm and smooth night so far, who runs in 6th up ahead of him. Flanagan holds the 7th spot for now. He, too, has had a very calm night. And Johnson trying to make the best of this race here, looking for at least one more position here. And he appears to be a tick faster than that as they come out of the hairpin at turn 5. And you see how abruptly he's trying to position that car to get the best entry possible in and out of some of these corners.
Yeah, exactly. He's pushing to the absolute limit, looks like, and looks like Flanagan might be sitting a bit into the pressure, could be costing them, as we do have a car spinning around. Looks like that's on the entry of the straight. That's Jimmy Allen, I have just been told. So that's unfortunate for him on the massive straight. He's going to be losing a lot of time, as we're going to be taking a look at the replay to see how that happened. I stand corrected. That looks like that was on the exit of turns 3 and 4. So it looks like he's blinking a little bit, and looks like he's just going to be spinning on the exit. No, oh yes, just unfortunately drops on the AstroTurf. Looks like a bit too much throttle, kind of just wobbles the car in reverse and gets pointing in the right direction once again.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Allen, he was holding down a final points-paying position in the top 10. That was Curtis Jones, who just flashed by him to take over the 10th spot. And as we mentioned, the way the league rules are written, if we don't have 20 cars, they're only paying points for the top 10. Jones just took that last top 10 spot, and he's got about 12 seconds of breathing room with what should be about 2 laps to go. It's going to be contingent on when Ledecky gets back to the line. And it looks as though Peters has gotten ahead of this battle here with Johnson making the pass on Flanagan, but for how long? Flanagan's going to try to battle back on the inside as they come through this corner. That's a tough place to make the pass at the hairpin at 5, but Flanagan's got the spot back. Johnson looks to try to take it back here.
Amazing racing between these two, putting the cutback, essentially the X, to perfection. Flanagan just did, and now he's going to be finding off Johnson on the massive straight, as they're not going to be heading into the final lap of the race. So essentially Johnson has one more shot at least to try to make this move work. He's not going to be looking down the inside of the chicane, but he gets extremely close. Can he get a better exit? He's pretty much pushing Flanagan on the final chicane, but looks like he's not close enough. He's going to be looking down the inside of the final corner. He gets his nose. He's going to be looking down the inside. Can he get a better exit? They're going to be pretty much drag racing as they head down into turn 1 on the final lap.
This is good stuff here on the front straightaway. Again, this the battle for the 7th spot. Flanagan outside, Johnson inside, approaching the very treacherous turn 1, while Alida Ledecky works his way across the far side of the racetrack. Johnson and them almost touched. You saw the right front tire slide as Johnson got on the binders. He's going to try to cement the pass here out of 2. This race is going to go all the way down to the checkered flag. It's all going on behind Nick Ledecky, who could not have had a more perfect day. He's going to kick off the Pacific Challenge Cup Series season with the fastest time in qualifying, a wire-to-wire sprint race win, and as he comes off the final corner, the first feature event of the 2021 season goes to Nick Ledecky in dominating fashion. He gets the win at the Nurburgring.
Absolutely perfection of a race. 60 minutes raced, 60 minutes of laps led. Amazing performance by him, over 14 seconds ahead of Brady Lubenow. Just an amazing all-out performance. I'm just speechless to see, someone doing this well, and it looks like the battle for essentially P7 is settled with Johnson making the move on Flanagan and keeping his position on P7.
Yeah, Johnson was able to make that pass, and we see here in the distance a little bit of a celebratory burnout for Nick Ledecky, who is taking in all of the positive results that he has put down here tonight, and I don't think this is just going to be a one-night affair. He's got Oran Park Raceway to look forward to next week. I should say Oran Park Raceway to look forward to next week on the Grand Prix layout. Hockenheim, 2 weeks. Road Atlanta, WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. And I think the odds makers in Vegas are already telling us that Ledecky is going to be the odds-on favorite after he led just about every lap in this race, minus potentially 1 to Ruderbusch on the pit strategy. But you see there, he had 1s across the board throughout this event. In fact, he did lead every lap there. As Lois said first, I thought Ruderbusch may have gotten a lap in the books there, but Ledecky got him back as that cycled through, and he is celebrating himself a win here to kick off the Pacific Challenge Cup Series. Well, we heard from Ledecky once before. Tonight, we're going to have a chance to hear from him shortly. We're going to take a very quick break and come back on the other side and hear from our podium finishers, and it's the first race of 5 for the Pacific Challenge Cup Series on Pit Stop TV.
Sound Art introduces an entirely new way to listen to music in your home. By combining the best of 2 products, a revolutionary high-fidelity, low-profile Bluetooth wireless speaker with beautiful artwork. Select from a library of artwork or upload your own photos to personalize your experience. Sound Art ushers in an era of invisible, beautiful, and amazing sound throughout your home and redefines your entire entertainment system. The need to reclaim your floor space and rid your home of unsightly speaker boxes that need to be bolted to the wall is now a thing of the past. Our canvas is printed on high-quality permalite by Breathing Color. And select from our gallery or upload your own. Standard sizes include 16 by 20 and 18 by 24 canvas wrapped. Custom sizing is available, as well as surround sound options.
After months of quarantine, we're all interested in how we can become our best self. The team at Permanent Makeup and Cryo is here to help you get the flawless makeup look every day without the extra effort or time. When it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy.
Welcome back to the virtual Nurburgring GP Sprint layout, where we just kicked off the 2021 Pacific Challenge Cup Series in dominating style, for that of a name which we've called many a times towards the front of the field at the end of some of these Pacific Challenge races. However, this would be one of the most dominating races that I think that we've seen at Pacific Challenge in quite some time, and it was all at the hands of Nick Ledecky. We spoke to him earlier after he captured top honors in the 20-minute sprint race. We doubled the amount of race time, added a pit stop, and it did not stop the incredible run that Ledecky was on here tonight. We're going to get a chance here to talk to our winner, Nick Ledecky. And Nick, I got to tell you, I thought that by doubling the race length, it was going to be a little bit more challenging. I thought by adding a pit stop, it was going to be a little bit more challenging. You just picked up right where you left off, man. I mean, could that race have gone any better?
To be honest, no. I mean, there were a handful of mistakes, but I can't really pick anything out that I could have done differently to improve the result.
We talked throughout the broadcast about how it's been feast or famine for you the last few times we saw you in Pacific Challenge. You're either spanking the field or you're in the process of doing really well and something comes out and bites you. Do you look at this season as a chance to kind of rewrite that script, especially considering the fact that you ran the table tonight?
That is pretty much the primary reason why I'm here. After coming out last season, and I want to say I had three different incidents where it was completely my fault and DNF'd the car. I really, between last season and this one, tried to focus on getting my consistency down and not pushing past my limit. And I think today was a good showing of my abilities now.
Oh, absolutely. And you picked up max amount of points as far as on-track performance is concerned by virtue of the sprint race win, the feature race win. But the schedule, it's really unique as we kind of watch how it unfolds here throughout the rest of this season. Oran Park Raceway, is that something that you're privy to running a lot on the sim? And if so, are you ready for that event, or is that going to be the agenda from now till next Monday?
I am ready for the event. I would say I'm somewhat confident. I've actually never driven there prior to this week, but I'm in another league, an Apex league, coming up on Wednesday as well, that will run at Oran Park in the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup. So I have to be ready for that. So I'm confident that by then, and then as well by Monday, I will be more than prepared for the event.
I'm sure the rest of the field is not going to be too thrilled to hear that. But Nick, I know you got a lot of people who make this possible for you. You have a lot of supporters, and you're able to do them exceptionally proud here tonight. Again, one of the most impressive performances we've seen on any road racing platform that we cover this season. Who do you have to thank for this strong run here? And once again, just put a whooping on them here. Any competition you were on track here tonight.
I have to give a massive thanks to everybody, especially I'm from Ohio, and all of my family and friends watching are from Ohio, and it's midnight here right now. So all the people that stayed up to watch me and support my dreams with racing, I guess I could say. Beyond that, everyone over at Vulcan Sim Racing for not only pushing me to be a better driver, but always helping out with setup and fuel strategy, whatever may be necessary. And then lastly, for you guys putting on the broadcast, for the organizers for the league, and then also my competitors, because not only this season but last season as well, both incredible experiences.
Well, it's really fun when we have drivers with your caliber of talent to come on out and compete in these events. I'm on the East Coast as well, and my wife gives me a hard time that it's such a late night. But when I know that we got guys like you in the field, I know that I'm actually watching some of the best in road racing compete, and we appreciate that as well. Maybe a little more interesting next week, but nevertheless, we appreciate the performance you put on here tonight, Nick. Incredible job, my friend.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks a lot, Nick Ledecky, our winner for the first round of 5 in this month of May calendar for the Pacific Challenge and their Porsche Cup Series. And now we're going to have a chance to hear from James Hansen, who had a very interesting day, came home rounding out our podium finish here today, third place finisher. I'm going to toss it over to JP Costa, who's going to be standing by with James Hansen.
So James, obviously you had a bit of a roller coaster race. I could say you didn't start off on the best position, but you know, due to moves, you were making moves left, right, and center. You found yourself on the podium. How hard was it to overtake, especially on these cars and on this track?
You know what? It's surprisingly hard to overtake here, especially because I would gain a lot of time in the braking zones, but these are the same cars. The exit speeds were pretty much identical, and the straights weren't just a little short to get a good run. So I ended up having to be pretty aggressive to get a pass in.
And obviously, I guess one of those moments, one of the highlights we saw on the race was that massive contact that you had between you and Hayes on the back straight. What was your point of view on that, and what was your reaction at the time?
I was surprised. I was going in a straight line. When I just looking at the replay, it looks like he just didn't anticipate me to stay on the middle of the track.
And that was an amazing save you two pulled off. Essentially, you just somehow just managed to keep the car pointing in the right direction, and that was amazing. And after
we
that,
both did.
yeah, that was amazing. We just saw, and both of you obviously fed back into the racetrack safely. And after that, you kind of just pulled away a small gap. Do you think if you had more time, or maybe if you started on P3, could you have maybe challenged Brady and Nick for the lead and maybe second place?
Possibly. Brady was really fast. I was putting down some good laps at the end, but I don't know if I would have been able to hang with them at the beginning stages of the race. I was having a hard time with the colder tires at the very start.
Those tires are definitely tricky to get up to temperature, but as soon as you got yours up to temperature, you seem to have a really good pace. And how do you feel like this result will push you on to next week at Orem Park? Do you feel like that could be a racetrack where you could excel and maybe challenge for the win?
I've never driven at Orem Park, so I'm a little apprehensive about learning it, but we'll see. I hear it's a pretty narrow track.
Yeah, it's pretty narrow, it's pretty difficult, but I'm sure it's going to be lots of fun, not only for you, but everybody watching, especially on these cars. Now, quickly tuning in, obviously you finished on the podium. Who do you have to thank for your amazing result?
I'd like to thank my wife and my cats, Sophie and Gigi.
Well, I'm sure they are proud of your result and those moves and that save, and I hope to talk to you next week, James.
Me too. Thank you.
Amazing race. That was James Hansen, our third place finisher, and that's back to you, Eric.
Thanks a lot, JP Costa, and great to hear from a number of our front runners. Obviously, Brady Lubenow came home in second spot as well. A great run for him throughout the night. Let's take a look at how the rest of the field came home to the checkered flag here. Ledecky, final margin of victory, 13.9 seconds over Lubenow, and Lubenow was hands down the second best car here tonight. I mean, you know, Ledecky may have been in his own zip code. Lubenow was in his own town. The rest of the field was fighting miles back, it appeared, but Hansen, as you just heard from, was able to battle back for that third place finish. Wade Hayes was so close to a podium, had to settle for fourth, and as JP Costa said, Mikkel Ruderbusch probably gets the comeback of the night award, not only by virtue of battling back from the spin, getting off strategy on the pit stop, rounds out our top five. Corey Peters, Cody Johnson, David Flanagan, all three of those cars were going at it there for position late in the going. Peters ends up sixth. Johnson seventh despite the late spin. He got that spot late over Flanagan, who settled for eighth, while BC Voigt was ninth, and Curtis Jones gets the final points-paying position in the top 10 when they came down with the checkered flag. And out of 12 cars that were in the field, the last two who came down for the finish was that of Jimmy Allen, who unfortunately finished one lap down, and Chris Brunnemer, who had that bizarre technical issue, it appeared, that took him out of contention while running up towards the front of the field. So we all absolutely love being a part of these races, especially for the Pacific Challenge Cup Series, but we could not do it without the incredible and immense help of our partners here at Pit Stop TV. It is because of all of these individuals and businesses that we have the opportunity to come out and have some fun with you on a Monday night, including our friends at Tucson Sound Art. Remember, it's your picture, your music. Mother's Day is right around the corner, and I was frantically searching for the best Mother's Day gift, and I thought of my friends at Tucson Sound Art. Provide any image that you want. They create a custom, beautiful, high-quality frame canvas with a built-in Bluetooth speaker, because with Sound Art, you're going to get the best of both worlds. Visit TucsonSoundArt.com for more information, and make sure you use the promo code PitStopTV at checkout to receive 10% off your purchase. We are also brought to you by our friends at Race Pace. If you ever wished you had a race engineer on speed dial, this is your chance, because thanks to Race Pace, which is a driver development service and setup shop all into one, you can work with our buddy Tyler, who is a real-world race engineer, and step up your game before your next race. A lot of our drivers talking about how Orem Park Raceway is not something they're privy to. If they need some help, all they got to do is hit up our buddy Tyler. Discord information on the bottom right-hand portion of your screen. Make sure that you pick up the pace with Race Pace. Our broadcasts are also presented by our friends at Permanent Makeup in Maine, because when it comes to your appearance, you deserve the best care that money can buy. Owner Ashley Boyer, certified micropigmentation specialist who provides professional, safe, and most importantly, personalized services. Contact them on the website down below, permanentmakeupinmaine.com. Check out their social media outlets as well to see before and after photos, testimonials, all that they have to offer, and make sure that you look the absolute best, because they have the best solution for your permanent makeup concerns. Permanentmakeupinmaine.com to learn more. We're also brought to you by our friends at Whiplash Media. Whiplash Media, the parent organization to us here at Pit Stop TV, and they specialize in various sim racing resources, including paint schemes, stream overlays, the beautiful iRacing camera packs we had here tonight at the virtual Nurburgring. That was also courtesy of our friends at Whiplash Media, and they do so much more. They also have a presence in real-world racing as well. They have services that stem from photography, social media management, public relations, and more. To learn everything you need to know about Whiplash Media, visit the website on the bottom right, whiplash-media.com. And our newest partners, BAM Racing Videos. By a race fan for the racing community, BAM Racing Videos is a go-to stop for me on Sunday or Monday mornings after we get through a racing weekend. Brandon Mettler is somebody who's behind the scenes there. He travels a bunch, captures a lot of footage on his own, but he's also really into providing and connecting the racing community. And to check him out, again, BAM Racing Videos, search them on social media, and you'll see all the incredible content that they have to offer over there as well. Well, JP Costa, I got to say, it's been a while since you and I had a chance to call some Pacific Challenge action. I'm happy to be back. Happy that it's under this format. We wrapped up the night with a ton of racing. Nick Ledecky had the field covered, but there was some great battles all throughout the field.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of where we left off last time with the GT3s, is just as we expected, fantastic racing throughout the field. Not a lot of contact between the drivers, very clean racing, and it's just what we love to do. And obviously, as you said, we did have a driver dominating the weekend, the racing sessions. And well, I just cannot wait for Warren Park. It's definitely going to be a spanner in the mix, seeing these cars, I guess, kind of challenging the circuit, being so tight and so technical. It's definitely going to be something to look out for, and I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah, we're really going to be looking forward to our next race with these guys. We got a lot more racing still to come on the platform, and it's going to continue on immediately tomorrow with more road course action. However, it's going to be with the NASCAR Xfinity modeled stock cars for Newark Season 13. That's going to be at Road Atlanta, a track that, ironically, you'll also see the Pacific Challenge cars on in a couple weeks' time. Newark Season 13, Road Atlanta tomorrow night here on Pit Stop TV. Wednesday night, the BRP Asphalt Modified Tour. We got a little bit of a theme going so far this week, if you can't tell. That's going to be at Watkins Glen. More road racing action for modifieds. Back in the day, that used to be a big ticket item for what is the now NASCAR Wheel of Modified Tour. The BRP Asphalt Modified Tour is going to try their hand at the Glen on Wednesday night on the platform. Friday night, we get back to some oval racing with the LTAC Cup Series at the Auto Club Speedway. They haven't had a real race there in a couple of years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We get the opportunity to jump in and play with it on the sim a little bit here, so the LTAC Cup Series will be in action at Auto Club on Friday. Sunday night, the XSLR Global Mazda MX-5 at Lime Rock Park, one of my favorite road courses in the country. MX-5, one of my favorite race series in the country. I will not be missing that one. And then, of course, we got another doubleheader next Monday. BRP Pro Dirt Late Models at Knoxville. And this very series, the Pacific Challenge Cup Series at Orland Park Raceway. It's been an incredible night, and we have an incredible team. As you heard, we had JP Costa on the call with me, Andrew Cardinale IV, who is solely responsible for a lot of the sights and sounds that we saw here tonight, and Emerson Arden, who let the word spread about how incredible this series and its drivers are. And I'll also tip my cap to our production crew as well. All of these guys and everybody who was on the team, even those who are not with us here tonight, do an incredible job covering all the racing action that we have to offer on a week-in and week-out basis, and it really makes these nights of broadcasting oh so much fun. However, our time tonight has run out. We're done this evening. We look forward to seeing you back here, whether it's Newark Racing tomorrow, whether it's more Pacific Challenge events next week. We got it all going on here on Pit Stop TV, and we want to thank you all so much for coming out and having some fun with us. Until next time, I'm Eric Brennan on behalf of everybody at Pit Stop TV. We hope to see you again soon. Good night, everybody.